rocks across America with Jimmy Fallon, a man who was not out partying at the Florida Gators homecoming game this weekend. Joining us now on the line, someone who may have sobered up by now. She's a superstar representative from the 3rd Congressional District of Florida, Representative Kat Cammack, back on the show. Hey, girl.
Hey, girl. Hey, Jimmy.
I saw you cruising in that Mustang. Nice white convertible. Look at you.
Well, you know, when you have the homecoming parade, you got to ride in style, but you can't be telling people about my partying. I mean, this is how rumors get started.
Well, listen, just so you know, the fact that you're willing to appear on this show has pushed that rumor further than anything you could have been doing in the swamp this last Saturday. People start talking the minute you come on.
This is why we don't have nice things. Yeah. This is why we don't have nice things, Jimmy.
Very well said. Well, congrats on the win. You beat up the mighty Vanderbilt team. I know that wasn't easy, but you got the W, and that was a good time. But let me ask you this, because I wanted to mention the football game for the simple fact that you're in the swamp with 100,000 screaming football fans, and I've been to a couple of games this year myself. Doesn't it seem a little silly when Fauci said on Saturday that vaccinated people are going to start wearing masks outdoors? Kind of weird.
It's interesting because didn't he also say earlier, maybe last week, that he wasn't sure if we were going to be able to celebrate Christmas, and Halloween's okay, but Christmas we're not sure about. And, you know, I don't know about you, but I think pretty much myself, everyone I know, and college football has moved past Fauci's draconian guidance. Yes. And it doesn't take more than one Let's Go Brandon in a college stadium these days to get people pretty much all on the same page.
Yeah, this Brandon guy is polling really high right now. You know, no one talks about him, but we might want to put him in charge. There seems to be support across the board. Support across the board in any forum, you know, could be race. Really could. And the thing is, like, I'm amazed at this point that, you know, when it comes to public health initiatives, you know, you're influencing 300 million people. And when you call audibles as aggressively as he has, because the reference you made earlier was him saying no Christmas on a Sunday, or at least it was too soon to know, but on Monday, of course, we can have Christmas. Like, that does create a lot of confusion. And I think people who are following him in good faith are having an impossible time. Now, there's a lot of people like us who just see through it at this point. But wouldn't you almost make the argument, being down there in Florida, that at this point we should just be taking a very targeted approach to COVID and letting everybody else kind of run free, you know, assuming they've been vaccinated or at least playing some semblance of defense?
Well, I mean, that's just the common sense side of what we've all been saying since COVID really began, was take the necessary precautions, protect those most vulnerable, and there's no need for these ridiculous, crazy lockdowns that are a one-size-fits-all approach, which we all know big government loves to employ, the one-size, broad brush fits all programs. And it's like you said, the leadership and the guidance that's coming out of Fauci and CDC, it's so much like a pinball, right? Mm-hmm. You're being knocked around every which way, because first it was wash your hands, social distance, stay inside your house, give us 15 days, and now it's, 15 months, and everything will be fine. Then the vaccines come, thanks to President Trump, which, of course, the White House and this administration want to never acknowledge and never will, because, heaven forbid, they actually give credit to Trump and his team for something that they did well, and actually remarkably well. And the vaccines come out, and then it was, what Florida did was, we're going to target our most vulnerable populations first. We have a very large senior population, so we're going to go ahead and start systematically setting up a process by which people who want to get the vaccine can do so. And, of course, those on the front lines, if they want to get the vaccine, they can do so. And it was a very common sense, organized approach to the pandemic. Now you're hearing from the administration, well, if you're vaccinated, you should have technically been able to not wear a mask, but now we need you to put the mask back on, even if you've been vaccinated, because getting the vaccine now won't protect you from people who may have COVID, or maybe they had the vaccine too, but they got COVID and had a breakthrough case. So we're just going to go right back to what we were doing pre-vaccine, because Why again? I mean, it's
if you're just joining us, Florida Representative Kat Cammack is on the phone, and she's kind of just let the cat out of the bag. Following your logic there, which is all true and factual, I am pretty much now convinced that they have, do you remember the Magic 8 Ball when you were a little kid?
Yes.
Is Fauci issuing public health decorums with a Magic 8 Ball?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Shaking it up. Do vaccinated people need sources point to yes? I remember those answers.
I mean, well, if you look at Fauci's desk, and maybe there's a picture in the latest Vogue edition of Vogue or whatever cover of magazine he's on these days, but there was at the beginning of the pandemic a picture of Fauci in his office, and on his desk he had a little tiny figurine, and it was a pangolin. Mm-hmm. And you guys remember that's what they were saying this all started from, a bat, had relations with something or another, and it was the wet markets, and that's where all this came from, right? Now, I want to go back to that photo and find out if there is, in fact, an 8 ball, because we know for a fact that Fauci is not following the science. He's following the political science, because everything that this administration is about dependency and control. Yeah. And they would never implement a policy that relinquished control, and it's all derived from dependency on government and government guidance.
So very well said, and it's true. And I think at this point they're not even making an effort to hide it, and that's the part that it's like it's so brazen, as you can see the politics influencing the health initiatives. But that's why I feel like we got to this place where we're fighting each other so much harder than we're fighting the pandemic that we'd be better off just pulling the goalie. I don't know if you followed any of this Southwest story, but it's so funny. Southwest is canceling thousands of flights. They say it has to do with the weather, but I'll give an example. I flew out of Columbus, Ohio yesterday, where Southwest is canceling flights for the weather on what was a 72-degree day with no wind or rain. Pretty optimal flying conditions, if you ask me. I'm not going to accuse anyone of propaganda, but I guess the question I have for you is, we're at this point now where we have such a huge percentage of society vaccinated. We have another 100 million people who have, natural antibodies developed against the virus. You say it is about control, which I agree, but do they not, I guess my question is, do they not see themselves? Do they not have self-awareness, because this is emotional? Because they're doing things that the rest of us know look crazy. So have they just gotten to a place where this is an emotional thing and it's denying them self-awareness?
I think for the longest time, I mean, we've all heard about the frog that gets boiled slowly, right? Mm-hmm. And if you had a pot of boiling water and you threw the frog in, it would jump right out. Mm-hmm. I think for a long time, for the last 2-3 decades, we have been slowly turning up the heat. Mm-hmm. If you look right after 9/11 and what happened with the Patriot Act, and all of a sudden, your data was not necessarily your data, and we've given up these little bits of our liberties and freedoms over time, and there's been no pushback. So it doesn't really surprise me that government and really big business is trying to do this and then feigning like, oh my God, I can't believe there's this much pushback on this. Like, we've never had this kind of pushback. And I think it's because, one, there's a lot of people across America like myself who have just said, I've had enough, and we're not doing this anymore. And then there's another group of us that really feel like, you know what? We have seen repeatedly where their end game has proven to be political in nature, not with public health or public safety in mind, not with national security in mind, and with as many crises that are building up. You look at the border, you look at Americans left behind in Afghanistan, you look at how they have just had one thing after the other come out. People have really started to just lose faith and a lack of trust. And I think those two things combined is what has led us to this point where people are like, you want to do what? No, I'm not doing that. And that is really, I think, encouraging that Americans are starting to stand up and say, you know what, I know what my rights are. I know what the Constitution has laid out for me that I hold sacred, that I am guaranteed as an American citizen. And no, you're not going to do this. You're not going to force me to do that. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, why you're seeing this pushback, both in private sector as well as in public sector. You know, my husband's a firefighter and a SWAT medic. His department just made the announcement a couple months ago that they were going to fire every firefighter, police officer, and utility worker that did not receive the vaccine. Now, I've said it before, I am not anti-vaccine. If you want to get the vaccine, get the vaccine. But I am 100% anti-mandate. And so with about 200 police officers and firefighters and linemen getting ready to quit, it went to trial, and we actually won. And the city had to back down because they realized they weren't going to bully people into forcing them to make these decisions. And I think you're seeing that across the board with these mandates, and it's happening in the public or in the private sector too. You see that with the airlines right now. A lot of issues that are coming to a head, and I think you're going to see a massive pushback across the country.
It is. I agree, and I think it's inspiring to see Americans getting up off the mat and reclaiming some of their freedoms, or at least fighting to hold on to some of them. One of the craziest things I've ever seen as a New Yorker is 2 weeks ago, they had an anti-mandate rally here in Times Square. And between you and me, you need to know this is the first time in the history of Times Square anyone's ever turned down a drug. And it really jumped out at me, knowing what the culture is here in New York, that people are just fed up on every level. And I feel like there's a path forward, a unified path forward, if we give people back a little bit of their freedom and a little bit less overreach. I don't know if we're going to get there. But one other thing I had to ask you about is, there's so much gloom and doom in our politics right now. But the nice thing is they seem to have spending under control in the Democratic Party, no?
Yes, that's their strong suit, is fiscal conservatism.
They're just that steady hand at the till. They're doing the math. And did you kind of so let me ask you this. Would we be within our rights for sending Joe Biden a dry cleaning bill if we did a spit take when he said the bill cost $0? Facts are hard for this administration. It's comical at this point, and I don't want to be so glib about what is happening in our country, but this is what I tell people. I did a Facebook Live right outside the Capitol not too long ago, right when Nancy Pelosi was losing the votes, which Beautiful. I personally was tickled about because Nancy Pelosi is the ultimate operator, and she always manages to get her votes, and she has not been able to wrangle them up yet for this $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill. But, the nonsense that they are spewing, $3.5 trillion bill, and it costs $0? Huh? Now, look back to the 4th of July. You saved 16 cents on your 4th of July holiday. Oh.
Really? Because I turned on my car and I drove to the end of my driveway, and that 16 cents was gone.
Assuming you rode a horse to the barbecue, you saved money this year.
Yeah. It's almost like they live in an alternate reality. And you look at what's in these bills. The reconciliation package, it's filled with just pork across the board. You have a $200 million park that is going into Nancy Pelosi's district. They want to tax made in America products specifically. They want tax hikes on nearly every income level, which we know is already happening through inflation. Of course, the doubling of IRS agents to spy on Americans that have $600 aggregate in their bank account at any given time of the month. They want mass amnesty for illegals, which again ties right into the open border situation that we have. They want free college for illegals and free health care programs for illegals. It doesn't make any sense. Then you factor in they want to do the so-called infrastructure package. Only 6% of it actually goes to real infrastructure. I don't know about you, but infrastructure to me is broadband. It is roads, bridges, ports, airports, things that are tangible. But now they want to go through and declare buildings and highways racist. And I don't know where they get off on this stuff. And they expect us to not only pay for it, they want us to believe somehow that it doesn't cost us anything, that we're not garnishing our kids and our grandchildren's wages. It's really, really frustrating. But I think, again, people are waking up. People are saying, you know what, I've had enough. My everyday life is now being impacted by the ridiculousness of this administration through everyday costs, whether it's their health care, whether it is their kids getting masked up in schools against their will, whether it is they turn on the news and they see illegals getting free stuff. It doesn't matter. I think every American, regardless of party, they're getting to the point where they are fed up and they have absolutely had enough. And that, I think, is the unifying moment that we have going into the midterms. So to me, there is that silver lining that people are seeing what this is.
I agree. Our studio audience is standing and cheering right now. You can't see them. They were quietly humming America the Beautiful during your remarks, but you brought them to a crescendo. And no, you were spot on, Kat Cammack. That's why we love talking to you. So this is what you got to do, okay? In the interest of bipartisanship, anybody who you are kind of friendly with on the Democratic side of the aisle, I know they don't really negotiate with you guys a lot right now, but we have to find out if there's a magic 8 ball somewhere in the White House, because it's the only thing that can explain these policies. Maybe the 8 ball told them, hey, should I say the bill costs $0? And it gave him, he shook it, and it said yes. I mean, wouldn't that be more credible than anything they're doing?
It would probably make more sense, honestly. Okay. It would absolutely make more sense than what we've got going on right now. And again, I mean, I think what we're facing right now is so beyond politics. It's so beyond the party structure. It's are we going to be the America that is about equal opportunity, or do we want to become the America that Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi want, which is equal outcome? Yeah. I prefer equal opportunity. They want equal outcome. I don't think that is fair for every kid in America who's been told that they can do whatever they want in their life, whatever they can dream, they can achieve. Even though I do think that maybe we have taken this whole, anyone can be president thing a little too far. I mean, that's what we're dealing with right now.
It wasn't, everybody gets a trophy quickly became everyone gets a presidency, and it's not working. It's not working. We got to start keeping score. All right, that was the closer because we can't top it. That was really funny by you. Kat Cammack bringing home the gold yet again. No participation trophies for your interviews. You're the best, pal.
Hey, I appreciate you. You have a good week, man.
You too. Be well. There she goes. The legend, Kat Cammack. There we go. Back after this.